The Young and the Restless Spoilers. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Matt is a monster, and what is he plotting? Does he want to kill the entire Newman family? Matt observed, waited, and studied the cracks in the Newman family like a predator learning the rhythm of its prey. Noah was too powerful and not easy to confront, so he turned his attention to Summer, and she's confirmed to be returning to the current storyline to increase the intrigue. To hurt Nick, you shouldn't target his business, his reputation, or even his life. You've targeted the people he's willing to burn the world to protect. And Summer, isolated and far from the direct protection of her family, became the perfect target in Matt's eyes. Summer focused on her career to forget her troubles and suffering, so she couldn't possibly have imagined she was being watched. Nick called to warn Summer, but she didn't answer. But she pushed it aside, convincing herself that the fear was merely a lingering instinct from all she had endured at home. She desperately wanted to believe that she had overcome that fear, that she was finally free. That night, everything seemed normal at first. The streets of Milan shimmered in the golden light, the city's murmurs gentle and distant. Summer allowed herself a rare moment of peace, walking alone, thinking about a future not centered on chaos. It was in that fragile moment of tranquility that Matt struck. No warning, no dramatic preparation, just a sudden brutal shift from safety to terror. One moment she was alone with her thoughts, the next she was gagged, bound, and dragged into a nightmare she never imagined would follow her. Summer woke up to find herself tied to a chair facing a stranger she'd never met. What grudge did he have? Matt introduced her as Nick's enemy, and she was to die here. It was the kind of place designed not just for confinement, but for destruction. And Matt stood there looking at her, not with anger, but with a terrifying sense of satisfaction. To him, this wasn't chaos, this was control. Every movement, every word, every fleeting moment of fear on Summer's face was part of a carefully orchestrated scheme. He didn't need to physically harm her to prove it. The real weapon was fear, and he used it precisely. He said just enough, revealed just enough to make it clear that this was never about her. She was a message, a point of reference. A vivid, tangible reminder to Nick that no matter how hard he tried to escape his past, it would always find a way back to him. The moment Matt raised the camera, everything changed. This was no longer a kidnapping, it was a performance. A meticulously calculated act of psychological warfare. Summer, bound and terrified, became the center of a message designed to destroy not her, but those who loved her. Matt pressed her into the frame, his presence lurking just outside the line of sight, his voice so calm it only added to the horror. He wanted Nick and Sharon to see this, to feel it, to understand exactly how helpless they were. When the video was sent, it quickly reached its recipients. Nick and Sharon were together when it arrived, a rare moment of peace between them shattered for seconds. The moment the video began playing, their world seemed to crumble. There was no preparation for this, no way to mentally prepare for the image of their daughter, horrified, bound, and completely at the hands of a man who had demonstrated just how far he was willing to go. Nick's reaction was swift, instinctive. The rage didn't build up slowly, but exploded all at once, fueled by overwhelming fear, transforming into something entirely different. His hands trembled, not from weakness, but from an intense urge to act, to destroy, to eliminate the threat at all costs. Every instinct within him screamed to find Matt to end this before it went any further. But beneath that rage lay something far more dangerous: guilt. The agonizing realization that all of this was his fault, the fault of the enemies he had created, the fault of a life he could never truly escape. Sharon's reaction was different, but no less intense. Her fear was expressed through despair. The glowing screen of the burner phone cast a sickly pallid light across the rustic interior of Sharon's cottage. Outside, the Genoa city night was cloaked in an unnatural stillness, but inside the cozy living room, the atmosphere was suffocatingly tense. Nick Newman stood frozen, his broad shoulders rigid beneath his dark Henley, his eyes locked onto the digital display. Beside him, Sharon gripped the edge of the mahogany coffee table, her knuckles white, her breath caught in her throat. The video message playing on the small screen was a transmission from a nightmare they thought they had woken up from decades ago. Matt Clark. His face older but etched with the same sadistic, mocking arrogance that had haunted their youth, smirked back at them through the lens. He wasn't hiding in the shadows anymore. He was leaning casually against a brick wall, twirling a familiar silver lighter between his fingers. "Hello, Nick." Sharon, Matt's voice oozed from the tiny speaker, a dark, velvety drawl that sent a violent shudder down Sharon's spine. Did you really think the great Victor Newman could just make me disappear, that a few iron bars and some high-priced lawyers could keep me away from the people I love to hate? Matt chuckled, a hollow scraping sound. I've had a lot of time to dig, Nick. A lot of time to unearth the skeletons your daddy thought he buried under the foundation of that glittering glass tower of his. And I found the biggest one of all. Nick's jaw clenched so tightly his teeth ached. He instinctively reached out, pulling Sharon closer to his side as if Matt could somehow reach through the screen and grab her. Now, usually this is the part where the bad guy asks for a duffel bag full of unmarked bills, Matt continued, his eyes glinting with malicious glee. But I don't want your money, Nicholas. Newman money is dirty. It's soaked in the blood of the innocent. What I want is a confession. Matt stepped closer to the camera, his expression hardening into a mask of pure venom. I want you, the golden boy of Genoa City, to stand up in front of the world and read the file I just sent to your inbox. I want you to publicly admit exactly what Victor Newman did 30 years ago to acquire the prime real estate for Newman Enterprises' international expansion. I want you to tell him about the bribes, the forged safety reports, and the 3 innocent workers who burned alive because your father cut corners and then framed a scapegoat to rot in prison for it. Nick felt the blood drain from his face. He knew his father was ruthless, that Victor had crossed moral and ethical lines more times than anyone could count, but this was a level of cold-blooded criminality that bordered on monstrous. You have 24 hours to hold a press conference. Nick Matt's voice dropped to a lethal whisper. Read the documents. Expose the great Victor Newman for the murderer he is. If you don't, well, let's just say I have my sights set on someone very close to your heart. How is little Summer doing these days? It would be a tragedy if she paid the price for her grandfather's sins. The screen went black. The silence that followed was deafening. Nick hurled the burner phone across the room. It shattered against the stone fireplace, sending fragments of plastic and glass skittering across the hardwood floor. He's going after Summer. Nick choked out the words, tasting like ash in his mouth. Panic, raw and primal, clawed at his chest. That son of a bitch is targeting my daughter. Sharon immediately stepped in front of him, placing both of her hands squarely on his chest. She could feel the frantic, erratic hammering of his heart. Drawing on every ounce of her resilience, she forced herself to remain grounded. She had survived Matt Clark's reign of terror before. She knew the psychological warfare he waged. Nick, look at me, Sharon demanded, her voice firm but laced with deep empathy. Her amber eyes locked onto his, anchoring him in the storm. Breathe. We are not going to let him touch Summer. Do you hear me? We are not going to let him win. How Sharon Nick's voice cracked, a rare display of total vulnerability. You heard him. He doesn't want a payoff. He wants to obliterate my family's legacy. If I tell the truth about what Dad did, if that file is real, Newman Enterprises will be destroyed. My father could go to federal prison. The lawsuits, the scandal, it will ruin everything. He dragged a trembling hand over his face, his mind spiraling into the abyss of his dilemma. But if I stay quiet to protect my father's reputation, Matt will kill Summer. He's a psychopath. He won't hesitate. Then we don't stay quiet, but we don't play his game blindly either, Sharon reasoned, her mind working a mile a minute. First, we secure Summer. We don't tell her the details. We don't want her panicking and doing something reckless, but we put a security detail on her immediately. I'll call Chance. I'll tell him we have a credible threat. Keep it off the official GCPD radar for now to avoid spooking Matt, but get eyes on her 24/7. Nick shook his head, pacing the length of the rug like a caged tiger. Matt is a ghost, Sharon. If he sees police presence, even plainclothes, he might accelerate his timeline. He's been watching us. He knows our moves before we make them. We have to try, Sharon insisted, walking over to him and resting her head against his shoulder. I am not losing you to this darkness, Nick, and I am certainly not letting that monster anywhere near Summer. I will personally go to Marchetti. I'll invent a reason to stay by her side. But you have to find out if what Matt is saying is true. You have to talk to Victor. The mere mention of his father's name ignited a spark of fury in Nick's chest. For years, he had tried to distance himself from the ruthless machinations of Victor Newman, only to be repeatedly pulled back into the gravitational pull of the family drama. If Victor had truly orchestrated a cover-up that resulted in innocent deaths, Nick wasn't sure he could ever look at the man again. I'll go to the ranch, Nick said, his voice dropping an octave, solidifying into a dangerous resolve. I'm going to get the truth out of him one way or another. The drive to the Newman Ranch was a blur of rain-slicked roads and blinding headlights. When Nick finally pushed open the heavy oak doors of the main house, the familiar scent of expensive leather lemon polish and aged scotch hit him. It was the scent of power, the scent of a fortress built on secrets. He found Victor in his study, standing by the crackling fireplace, a crystal tumbler of tequila in his hand. The patriarch of the Newman family looked as formidable as ever, his posture impeccably straight, his expression an unreadable mask of authority. Nicholas Victor rumbled, not bothering to turn around as he stared into the flames. To what do I owe this late-night intrusion you usually call before barging into my home? There's no time for pleasantries, Dad Nick spat, closing the study doors firmly behind him. He marched across the Persian rug, stopping just inches from his father. Matt Clark is back. Victor slowly turned, his eyes narrowing into dangerous slits. That is impossible. My security team assured me that the authorities had him securely transferred to a maximum security facility. He is out of our lives. Well, your security team is as incompetent as your conscience, Nick fired back, his voice echoing off the wood-paneled walls. He just sent me a video message. He's not locked up, Dad. He's free, he's angry, and he has a file. A very specific file. Victor's stoic expression didn't waver, but Nick noticed the slight tightening of his father's grip on the crystal tumbler. What file? The one detailing exactly how you acquired the land for the European expansion 30 years ago, Nick said, watching his father's face closely for any micro-expression of guilt. The bribes, the forged safety reports, the 3 workers who died in the fire, and the innocent man you framed to take the fall so Newman Enterprises could rise from the ashes. For a long, agonizing moment, the only sound in the room was the popping of the firewood. Then Victor set his glass down on the mantelpiece with a sharp, definitive clink. That is ancient history, Victor said dismissively, though his voice lacked its usual booming resonance. Fabrications concocted by my enemies to smear my name. You of all people should know better than to listen to a sociopath like Matt Clark. Don't lie to me, Nick roared, slamming his hands down on Victor's mahogany desk. Don't you dare stand there and gaslight me, old man. I saw the documents he emailed me before I came over here. The signatures, the bank transfers. It's all there. You sacrificed innocent lives to build this company. I did what was necessary. Victor suddenly bellowed, his own temper flaring as he stepped up to his son chest to chest. You stand there in your self-righteous indignation judging me for the difficult decisions I had to make. I built an empire from nothing. I created a legacy to ensure that you, your siblings, and your children would never know a day of struggle in your lives. The world of international business is a battlefield, Nicholas. Casualties are inevitable. Nick stared at his father, utterly repulsed. The confirmation was like a physical blow to the gut. Casualties. They were human beings, Dad. They had families, and you buried them just to pad your bottom line. I protected this family, Victor countered fiercely, his eyes blazing with unapologetic defiance. And I will not allow a piece of gutter trash like Matt Clark to extort us. You will ignore his demands. You will not say a word to the press. I will have my people track him down, and I will eliminate the threat permanently. You don't get it, do you? Nick's voice broke, the anger bleeding away into sheer, unadulterated terror. He doesn't want money. He wants me to expose you. And if I don't, he's going to kill Summer. The color drained from Victor's face. For the first time, the great Victor Newman looked genuinely shaken. Summer. Yes, Summer, Nick yelled, tears of frustration pricking his eyes. Your granddaughter, the legacy you claim to protect, is the very thing that is going to get her killed. I have to make a choice, Dad. Destroy you or let Matt destroy my little girl. Before Victor could formulate a response, Nick's cell phone buzzed in his pocket. The sound was like a rattlesnake's warning in the quiet study. Nick yanked the phone out his hands, shaking as he unlocked the screen. It was a text message from an unknown number. Attached was a live video link. Nick tapped the link, his breath hitching. The screen buffered for a fraction of a second before resolving into a crystal clear image. It was Summer. She was sitting at a corner table inside the Genoa City Athletic Club, laughing at something on her laptop, completely oblivious to the world around her. But it wasn't the sight of his daughter that made Nick's blood run cold. It was the angle of the camera. The footage was being shot from a balcony directly above her. And slowly, agonizingly, a small red laser dot appeared on the screen. It danced across the white tablecloth, crawled up Summer's arm, and finally came to rest squarely on the center of her chest, right over her heart. A text bubble popped up beneath the video feed, times 12 hours left, Nick. The clock is ticking. Make the right choice, or I make it for you. Asterix. No. Nick gasped, stumbling backward until he hit the edge of the leather sofa. He shoved the phone toward Victor. Look at this. Look at what your legacy has brought to my doorstep. Victor stared at the screen, his jaw working furiously. I will call my security. No, Nick snatched the phone back. If Matt sees your goons moving in, he'll pull the trigger. He's a sniper, Dad. He's sitting up there right now just waiting for an excuse. Nick was suffocating. The walls of the study were closing in on him. He had to act urgently. He couldn't wait for Victor's elaborate chessboard schemes to play out. This wasn't a corporate takeover. This was his daughter's life hanging by a literal thread. Nick bolted from the study, ignoring Victor's booming voice demanding he come back. He sprinted to his car, his mind racing 1,000,000 miles a minute. He dialed Sharon as he peeled out of the ranch driveway, the tires squealing against the wet asphalt. Sharon, he's at the athletic club. Nick barked into the Bluetooth speaker, his voice tight with panic. He's got a laser sight on her, Sharon. He's going to kill her. Nick, slow down. Where are you going? Sharon's voice was filled with alarm. I'm going to Newman Enterprises, Nick said, a chilling calmness suddenly washing over him. It was the calm of a man who had accepted his grim fate. I'm going to the media room. I'm calling a press conference. Nick, wait. If you do this, there is no going back. Victor will never forgive you. The authorities will raid Newman. The stock will plummet. Your family will be torn apart. I don't care about the stock, Sharon. Nick yelled, slamming his hand against the steering wheel. I don't care about the company, and right now I don't give a damn about my father's forgiveness. Summer is my priority. She is the only thing that matters. I will burn Newman Enterprises to the ground and dance in the ashes if it means my daughter gets to live another day. He hung up the silence of the car, offering no comfort. Nick faced the most agonizing choice of his life. He was speeding toward the Newman Towers, the gleaming monument to his father's lifelong ambition. In his inbox sat the digital equivalent of a nuclear bomb. All he had to do was stand in front of the cameras, read the words, and the great Victor Newman would fall from grace forever, branded a monster in the eyes of the world. He weighed the consequences. Victoria would be furious, her tenure as CEO shattered by a scandal she had no part in. Nikki would be devastated, her world crumbling around her. The Newman name, once synonymous with power and prestige, would become a cautionary tale of greed and corruption. But then he thought of Summer's laugh. He thought of her bright future, her marriage, her dreams. He would not sacrifice his child on the altar of Victor's ego. Meanwhile, back at the Newman Ranch, chaos had descended with the force of a hurricane. Victor had immediately summoned his head of security barking orders into his phone to lock down the athletic club, discreetly desperate to neutralize Matt Clark without triggering a fatal reaction. Nikki had rushed into the study, her elegant face pale with worry, having heard the shouting. Victor, what is going on? Why did Nick leave in such a state? Nikki demanded, clutching her silk robe tightly around her. Moments later, Victoria burst through the doors, her phone practically glued to her ear. Dad, what is happening? The PR department just got an alert that Nick is convening an emergency press conference in the Newman media room. He bypassed my office entirely. The financial networks are already picking it up. Rumors are swirling that he's about to announce a massive corporate scandal. Victor stood by the fireplace looking older and more vulnerable than he had in decades. The impenetrable armor of the mustache was cracking. The dark secret he had buried so deeply, the sins he had committed in the name of family, were rising from the grave to destroy them all. Your brother Victor said, his voice a low gravelly whisper that sent a chill through the room, is about to declare war on this family. And God help us all, I don't think I can stop him. The Newman family stood in stunned, chaotic silence as the realization set in. The empire was trembling. The foundation was cracking. And as Nick Newman stepped up to the podium in the blinding glare of the media lights downtown, clutching the file that would change their lives forever, the dark, long-buried truth was finally about to be dragged into the unforgiving light of day.